A British terror suspect believed to have been fighting alongside the militant group Al-Shabaab was reportedly killed in Lamu. The 25-year-old Thomas Evans, also known as Abdul Hakim, was among 11 terrorists killed in Lamu. Security sources say that the forensic tests are expected to confirm that Evans was killed in the botched attack. Evans is said to have converted to Islam at the age of 19 and later traveled to Somalia to join Al-Shabaab. Still on the same, the body of one of the soldiers killed yesterday after Al-Shabaab militants attempted to attack a KDF camp in Baure, Lamu County, has been brought to Nairobi for burial. The slain soldier's family is expected to hold prayers at South Sea Mosque before proceeding to the Langata Muslim Cemetery, where the body will be laid to rest. The officer was among 2 KDF soldiers killed in the crossfire as an attempted attack on a military camp in Lamu. Moving on now, the stage is set for a major showdown between 2 houses of parliament, with Senate set to hold a special sitting today to discuss the conduct of the National Assembly. Senators are said to be plotting on how to tame rogue MPs as they discuss the motive of the National Assembly in disrespecting the rule of law. Our parliamentary editor, Aaron Ocheng, now joins us on phone. Aaron, you did mention that it started at 10 a.m. What is still happening up to this time?
Well, yeah, Ian, the special sitting of the Senate that was called late in the weekend for today's deliberation actually started at 10 o'clock. It was called by the leader of Majority, Kithure Kindiki Ofo. He was not himself here, but it was moved by Elgeyo Marakwet, Senator Kipchumba Murkomen. Basically, the session wants to deliberate on the motive and the conduct of the National Assembly in regards to what has been happening that has been spearheaded by Majority Leader Eden Duale and the Budget Committee Chairperson Mutava Musindi. When they read the budget last week, a part of 1 billion shilling that was allocated to the Senate for oversight role in the counties was slashed, and members of the Senate are particularly angered by that move. Also, they are particularly angered by the move by National Assembly not to pass the nomination of Dr. Monica Juma last week. Also, they are also angered by what the National Assembly did by slashing part of the money that was to be allocated to the Salaries and Remuneration Commission, as well as the Constitution Implementation Committee led by Simeon Nechai. So it's a session that started at 10 o'clock. They're taking a break at around 1 o'clock, right about now, and they'll be coming back at 2:30. What I've gathered is at the end of the day, they're going to form a committee that will be chaired by one of the senators, look into ways of negotiating with the National Assembly so that they can come into consensus on the way forward, especially in regards to the 1 billion shilling that was slashed from their oversight role. Ian.
Maybe, Aaron, do we know how, in what criteria they're going to use to maybe select this committee after this sitting?
Well, it is all in the hands of the Majority Leader, Kithure Kindiki. He will propose a name that will also be seconded by Minority Leader Moses Besangla. I do not know which names will come up, but as it is the rule, the 2 leaders of both sides of the political divide, the code and the Jubilee coalition, have to agree with on the names that will be deliberated and passed by the House. Yeah.
Thank you very much. That is Aaron Ocheng joining us from the parliamentary building, where Senate is currently having a special sitting. Of course, we shall just have more on that in a subsequent bulletins. Let's now cross borders a bit. A South African court is yet to give a final order on Sudanese President Omar al-Bashir's presence in South Africa. The court on Sunday issued interim orders preventing Bashir, who is facing an international criminal court warrant of arrest, from leaving South Africa, where he attended the African Union Summit. The North Gauteng High Court issued the interim orders following an urgent application by a human rights organization, the Southern African Litigation Center, seeking to have Bashir arrested and handed over to the International Criminal Court. Sudanese officials have issued a statement confirming that the head of state is still in South Africa, but he will exit the country at his own will. Bashir traveled to South Africa on Saturday for the AU summit, which ends today. The Sudanese leader was indicted by the ICC over war crimes and crimes against humanity in Darfur. The International Criminal Court issued a warrant of arrest against him in 2009. A lobby group has moved to court to block the presidential directive that all HIV-positive children countrywide should be identified and listed. The Kenyan Legal and Ethical Issues Network on HIV and AIDS have argued that the directive will be a catalyst for further stigmatization of HIV patients. High Court Justice Mumbi Ngugi will hear the petition this afternoon and rule on whether not to suspend the directive until the case is heard and determined. The heinous attacks on civilians in Lamu and Tana River mid-last year were followed by abusive operations by security forces. This is according to Human Rights Watch and the Kenya Human Rights Commission, who today launched a report titled Insult to Injury. The report indicates that 1 year later, no one has been held responsible for the attacks, whereas hundreds of people are said to have been beaten and detained without charge. The institutions are calling for a review of the interagency response terror attacks, stating that security forces are slow, discriminative and abusive in their response.
Number one, we are asking the different stakeholders is to acknowledge that there is a problem with the scope of abuses by our security officers when responding to issues of security. So they need to acknowledge that scope, but also work towards ending those kind of abuses. Number two, we are saying that it is important for the different stakeholders, the different actors, to investigate these abuses. Investigate with a view of prosecution.
And ultimately, I think part of what's important to look at in a report like this, where we look at these abuses, is that this type of response ultimately undermines the ability of the police to work with these communities. And in an ideal situation, you would want communities to feel that they could bring eyewitness testimony to police, that they would want to share what happened to them with police so that it could be part of an effective law enforcement.
Elsewhere, health officials in Kisii County are concerned about the rise in illegal abortions in the past 12 months. Statistics from the Kisii Teaching and Referral Hospital indicate that 70% of all pregnancies in women under the age of 25 ended in abortion since May last year. KTN's Fred Moturi reports.
When 24-year-old Mary Nyanchama's mother passed on 8 years ago, she had no one to take care of her. She dropped out of school and life became unbearable. She decided to stay with her sister near Kisii town, but then she could not cope with life since her sister had no job, and getting even a meal for her children remained a daunting challenge. She then opted to follow other girls in the neighborhood to the streets of Kisii, where she met a man who made her pregnant.
Ndio nikamwambia nimeshika mimba. Akaniambia si uache upate mtoto, na nikaona BFS huyu mtu ananidanganya, wacha tu nifanye abortion. Nikaona huyu hata akiniambia nipate mtoto atanisaidia.
Mary then decided to seek an abortion.
Daktari akanipea dawa, kumbe hiyo dawa ilikuwa mbaya.
Figures from the Kisii Teaching and Referral Hospital indicates a worrying trend because abortion has become amongst the top 10 health burdens affecting the youth in the region.
Between May 2014 and May 2015, we have seen a total of about 682 cases of abortions that are complete, either complete or incomplete abortions.
The gynecologists say that though progress has been made by health workers in guiding and counseling of the pregnant girls in halting alarming rate of teen pregnancies, abortion was increasingly seen as the major method of contraception for many young women in the region who engage in prostitution. Undari said that some of these women are not fully mature psychologically and emotionally, while some have undergone numerous abortions. The figures further indicate that out of the clandestine abortions recorded, 394 of the girls aborted a second time, and some did it even for the third time, while others do not want to reveal, but their medical history indicates a wanting future. Another worry is how most teen girls abuse the drug misoprostol, a prescription-only medication that is readily available in the chemist.
A tablet or 2 or 3 of this kind of drug will tend to cause a miscarriage, and I suspect that that is one of the major uses, the major cause of the miscarriages that we see around this county.
Fred Muturi, KTN, Kisii.
Well, we are taking a short commercial break, but we'll be back with more news from the business and sports desks. Don't go too far. Welcome back. Let us get into business now. Sorry. The board of Uchumi Supermarkets has terminated the contract of Chief Executive Officer Jonathan Siano effective immediately. This follows what the board termed as gross misconduct and negligence that was affecting the retailer's operations. Uchumi had run into headwinds with suppliers constantly complaining of not being paid an estimated of 1 billion shillings. As such, suppliers had stopped delivering their products to Uchumi, which had led to shortages at the retail chain supermarkets around the country. The board has therefore undertaken a forensic audit to establish the extent of the problem and has said it will be disposing of non-core assets worth 2 billion shillings worth of payoff to billing debts and avail liquidity to the supermarket. The board has also said that the firm will be engaging the services of the management consultancy to review its business model and put in place the proper strategy, processes and people to take the business forward. The news comes 8 years after the retail chain went into liquidation and was ironically turned around by the very CEO that has now been fired from the firm. The board is looking for a fresh management team to steer the retailer in the face of rising competition with the international retailers such as Choppies, The Game and Carrefour, who setting up locally.
The retail chain has been facing challenges, and the board has taken decisive action to address them. The board has commenced a forensic audit into the operations of the company to establish the extent of the problem. The board would also like to reassure all our stakeholders that Uchumi Supermarket continues to operate on a going concern, and that these measures were necessary to ensure that the business is run on sound principles of good corporate governance, irreproachable leadership, and high integrity.
Elsewhere, the National Bank of Kenya has announced that it will raise at least 1 billion shillings from the sale of non-strategic assets by the end of this year. The lender has lined up 10 physical branches for sale among other assets such as vehicles and will instead hire such services on demand. The sale of assets is meant to shore up its capital reserves following a delayed rights issue that is yet to receive approval from its main shareholder, that is the National Treasury and NSSF, which own 70% stake in the bank. The national lender had plans to raise additional capital to support its restructuring process since 2013 and hopes the planned cash call will yield at least 13 billion shillings. Last year, the bank opted not to pay dividend to shareholders despite posting at 2.143 billion shillings.
Mere 7% that those real estate now earns.
That story by Hassan Juma brings us to a close this afternoon. Of course, we shall have more in our subsequent bulletins, including that update on the British terror suspect who was killed in Lamu. We shall just have a look into his profile. We do like to know what is happening around you. Our Twitter handle is @KTN Kenya. My name is Ian Wafula. Enjoy the rest of your viewing.